The world of flight is for dreamers who look to the sky no matter what age. The fantastic world of aviation isn't just for grown-ups. The EAA Sport Aviation Club offers kids a great way to learn about airplanes and what other kids are doing to make their dreams come true. It's a great way to spark a kid's interest in reading and learning. $15 a year brings a young person 6 copies of Sport Aviation for Kids, plus other special offers. To order, call now, 1-800-843-3612.
Welcome to the 42nd Annual EAA Fly-In Convention. Before the hour's up, you'll battle for the sky in a laser-equipped military fighter. Travel in style on the world's fastest airliner. Soar to 20,000 feet in an attempt to break a world record. Ride with today's best aerobatic performers. Experience combat action in World War II fighters, bombers, and trainers. And fly wingtip to wingtip with the most impressive collection of aircraft gathered at one airfield. We're in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, the sport aviation capital of the world.
On the orange triangle there, 31 kilo. On the orange triangle, the Swift ahead is going to fly down the runway. You put it on the orange triangle. Real good, Swift. Thank you. Beam the VOR, clear land.
The Whitman Regional Airport Control Tower handles more than 3,000 takeoffs and landings each day of the convention. That's more than 10 times normal operations. Air traffic controllers will accommodate 12,000 aircraft during the week. Oshkosh is on the shore of Lake Winnebago in east central Wisconsin, a medium-sized city of 57,000 in America's heartland. It swells to more than 12 times that during the convention. Oshkosh has hosted the event the past 25 years. Perhaps the biggest single draw during the convention is the afternoon air show, which features more than 200 people in the air and on the ground. This event is so prestigious, these performers take time from their busy schedules and volunteer their talents for the benefit of an appreciative crowd. Since its U.S. debut at Oshkosh in 1989, the Russian Sukhoi has become recognized as a top performance aircraft, ideal for the demands of both exhibition and competition. This year, the new Su-31 is being unveiled. The Su-31 is the single-seat version of the popular Su-29. The new model incorporates the same supersonic fighter technology used in Sukhoi's military jets, coupled with extensive use of carbon fiber, composites, and titanium. Eugene Frolov, a Sukhoi Design Bureau test pilot and four-time socialist country's national aerobatic champion, is flying it. He was part of the historic 1989 delegation from Russia that delivered the first Sukhoi to American soil. He's 43 years old and has more than 25 years of flight experience.
And you do good.
Sean Tucker is one of the most talented performers to appear on the air show circuit in the last few years. The 41-year-old California native pilots a modified S2S in his Skydance routine. When he's not flying air shows, Sean works at the helicopter crop dusting service he owns. In performance, he constantly strives to incorporate new and original material in his act.
Well, we're constantly trying to work on our act to make it more dramatic, to add new maneuvers, and I'm trying to challenge myself as an aviator. And just recently I added just an inverted flat turn. It's kind of a dumb-looking maneuver, but for me, it's fun to be up there and just on the ragged edge of a stall, just kind of skidding around the airspace, looking upside down at Oshkosh and the 23,000 airplanes that are parked on the grounds out here. I've added the Hui loop, is where I pull vertical, tumble the airplane, stop it, and then pitch back on it, and it just kind of hangs in the sky and flops over backwards. Again, what I'm trying to do is show my skills as an aviator and show some neat tricks to the audience.
Picture driving down a highway at 100 miles an hour. There's a car on either side of you just a few feet away, duplicating your every move. Now take that to the sky. That's formation aerobatics, and nobody does it better than the longest-running civilian team, the Eagles. This is the 24th year for left wing Gene Suzy, right wing Tom Poperesny, and team leader Charlie Hillard.
Routine has kind of evolved over the years to be a very fast-paced, and we do a lot of crowd effect, collision effect maneuvers, and we've worked hard on join ups and trying to keep the routine very tight and right in front of the crowd, and I think we've been pretty successful at it.
As wingmen, Gene and I have to concentrate on all of Charlie's moves. We have to have total confidence in him. At the same time, he's got to have a feel for where we are. He hears us a lot, sometimes glances over, and really, it's total concentration. We see peripherally, but we're focused on Charlie all the time.
Let's come over here to left wing and talk to Gino Suzy. Gene, your role in this, start about the left wing. How does that work?
Well, basically the same thing. I try to stay in position for the whole show. I do get to break away from the formation a couple of times when we do some head-on passes. Charlie and Tom do those, and I'll come up the middle and get to do a few freestyle maneuvers, vertical snaps, and things like that.
In addition to the best in sport aviation, Oshkosh also attracts top military and commercial aircraft. What better place to show off the newest and the best?
Ladies and gentlemen, the lead two.
Making a very rare public appearance is the B-2 bomber. Because it's classified, the stealth bomber was not cleared to land. But most aircraft get to stick around for a while. The Concorde represents the ultimate in passenger service. It'll do better than Mach 2, twice the speed of sound. It's the fastest airliner ever built. How fast? The skin temperature at the nose will get as high as 260 degrees Fahrenheit. That's almost 50 degrees higher than the boiling point of water. And this incredible heat will stretch the airframe about 10 inches during supersonic flight. And what a flight it is. Champagne and chocolates at over 50,000 feet. Concorde is the result of a joint effort between Air France and British Airways, who brought the airliner to all 4 of its Oshkosh appearances. "20 years of development went into the project, making Concorde the most tested airliner in history. It was put into commercial service in 1976. 16 production aircraft were built. The payoff? A machine capable of crossing the Atlantic in 3 hours, as opposed to 6.5 or 7 hours required for normal flight. So you want to fly higher, faster, louder. Probably what you want is one of these combat jets. There are 3 dozen of them here at the convention that are privately owned. But you can't just walk into an Air Force showroom and say, I'll take one of those. All of them come from foreign sources. Even the U.S. fighters and trainers are bought from other countries. The jet age started at the close of World War II, when both German and Allied air forces began developing and testing turbine-powered aircraft. Modern jet combat began in earnest during the Korean conflict, when American F-86s, F-9s, P-80s, and F-84s tangled with MiGs built by Soviet and Chinese factories.
It was built in China in 1957, and it's a MiG-17F single-seat afterburning jet fighter. Mainstay of the Soviet bloc countries for many, many years. A follow-on from the MiG-15, which was a famous fighter that fought against our F-86 Sabres in Korea. Just keep in mind that Russia produced all of our threat aircraft that we've had since the end of World War II. And in Vietnam, we had this identical model MiG-17 as one of 2 major adversaries. The other was the MiG-21. We had a lot of respect for those airplanes then, and in some respects I have even more respect, especially for this particular airplane, than I had then. It's an awesome performing airplane.
More than 40 vintage jets from all over the world are at the convention. Sabres, Vampires, MiGs, trainers, and many others, including the only privately owned jet bomber, Steve Picotti's Canberra. This is the first year a special program has been set aside at Oshkosh for civilian-owned jets, and they promise to be a steadily growing segment of sport aviation. These classic jets aren't alone. They're joined by current military frontliners. The F-15 Eagle, the F-16 Fighting Falcon, the EF-111A Raven, and the F-14 Tomcat. If the jets are flying too fast for you, if you're getting tired of looking up, there's plenty to see right here on the ground. EAA splits general aviation into 4 categories: home-built, vintage, ultralight, and warbird. Each year, Lindy Awards are given out to the best in each division. Awards named after one of the greatest flyers of them all, Charles Lindbergh. The competition, though systematic and seemingly businesslike, is fierce. Variances too subtle to be seen by the average person often make the difference with the judges.
Now, the owners have put a great deal of work into these airplanes and apparently a great deal of their hearts. Sometimes they really get wrapped up in the score they get, don't they?
Oh, yes, that's true. We've had people come back year after year, and I recall one little Cessna 140 years ago, which is a classic. I'm not judging, but the fella learned the first year what he needed to do, and he came back the second year, didn't quite make it, and the third year he made grand champion. So it's a learning process, and we like to work with these people. We help them out, tell them what they need to do with their airplanes. But as I said, factory fresh in our case, and all of them, you can't go wrong.
For the aviation connoisseur, this is the convention, a chance to show off a restored or home-built airplane. Throughout the years, thousands of very talented people have competed for Lindy's.
This is the ultralight light plane rotorcraft area at the southernmost end of the convention grounds. Now, ultralights offer a somewhat more accessible entry into flying for the average person. Ultralights aren't about power, but they are about soaring. This is Jim McLay out of Morristown, Tennessee, about 30 miles from Knoxville, and this is quite an aircraft you've got here. Jim, tell us about it.
Okay, this is a Buckeye-powered parachute. Flies about 27 miles an hour, and I flew it up here, like you say, from Knoxville, Tennessee.
You like to say Knoxville because people don't know where Morristown is, but
That's
30
exactly
miles more comes into play here. Took you quite a while to get here, didn't it?
Yes, it took 23 and a half hours, made 14 stops. Fly about 500 feet above the ground, and the view is terrific.
And you had a great time. Now tell us about how this airplane works.
Okay, this is actually, basically it's a parachute. You lay it out behind the aircraft, and as you increase the power, the parachute comes up, forms a wing, that then becomes an airplane, and you take off.
The third annual Great Cross Country Flying Race is a timed race with a staggered start. The course covers a distance of 777 nautical miles from Colorado to Oshkosh and is open to participants in 5 categories. There's an additional prize for the fastest overall time. The race is for piston aircraft only, but production planes compete head-to-head with home-builts in most categories. Almost a third of the pilots are flying airplanes they've built themselves.
We're on the way to Oshkosh with John and Martha King of King Schools, co-sponsor of the race, along with Flying Magazine. Aircraft Spruce and Specialties presenting the event. There's $20,000 in prize money on the line. Now, John, the pilots can't just make a beeline for Oshkosh. They have to respect restricted airspace. They have to go around threatening weather if there is any. Run down some of the rules for us.
Well, you're right, absolutely, John. They have to go around restricted airspace. Many of these airplanes are flying under instrument flank rules, and they have to follow the air traffic control's directions. So there's a lot of complications on this, and of course, how the pilot deals with all these complications is going to make a big difference. But the final analysis will be, I think, the best airplane's going to win.
Once, air racing was more popular than baseball. During the 1930s, contests like the Thompson and Bendix drew massive crowds and built heroes out of men and women like Roscoe Turner, Jackie Cochran, and Jimmy Doolittle. Today, Today, closed course competition remains alive at meets like the Reno and Phoenix 500 air races. Long distance racing is typified by events such as the Great Cross Country Flying Race. This Lancer, piloted by Don Getz, was the first to arrive. Airplanes continue to stream in all afternoon, and although 2 aircraft dropped out along the way, everyone landed safely. Matt and Derek Stennis flipped a coin to see who would pilot. Matt won, but let his son fly left seat anyway.
How was it out there?
It was really good. The weather was really good, and we managed to pick up a lot of wind coming over, so it went really well for us.
What's the fastest you got going, Derek?
We were over 300 knots for a bit, and on the descent, we were doing 340 knots.
So no major difficulties for you?
None at all. The airplane worked beautifully.
The officials have tabulated the results in all 5 categories. Presenting the awards for unlimited and best time overall is Jim Irwin, the founder of the event.
The winner of the 1994 Great Cross Country Air Race in the Unlimited Division, flying a Lancer 4P, 2 hours, 45 minutes, 42 seconds, 281 knots, number 3, Don Getz.
How was the race, Don? How do you feel about having won it?
Well, taking out from Colorado and climbing up and getting to altitude and sitting there and not knowing where anybody is, and just yourself, and touching down here, and I was the only one here and the first one here. It's a good feeling.
And so Don Getz of Redmond, Oregon is the overall champion of the 3rd annual Great Cross Country Flying Race. As a whole, home-built aircraft like the Lancer did very well in the standings.
Nothing exemplifies the spirit of EAA more than the home builds. You find them in backyards, driveways, garages, barns, tin roof hangars at small airports. People with a dream that they wind up flying. It starts with an idea, maybe your own idea, maybe somebody else's plans, and then it involves a whole lot of riveting, welding, and pounding, seat covering, a lot of sweat, a lot of commitment to reach your dream. Sometimes you come to a workshop like this to see what you can learn, to see if it'll fit into helping you reach that dream. Mike Betts is from Victoria, British Columbia. The first question, Mike, what kind of airplane is this? And it's not so simple an answer, is it?
Well, no, it's not. It's an Alliance. It's a 4-place composite metal construction using an Airega fuselage and a Mooney wing and control surfaces.
Now, how did it come about that it has so many different components?
Well, the Airega was an offshoot from the Wheeler Express. When they went under, we had to do our own thing, and we built the Airega fuselages. The Mooney side of it was something that I thought I'd like to do in joining metal and composite construction together. The Mooney wing was ideal for the purpose.
Concorde is not the only aircraft in the spotlight at the fly-in. This DH-88 Comet is a replica of the winner of a 10,000-mile London to Melbourne race in the 1930s. The original, one of 3 built by Jeffrey de Havilland, still exists in airworthy condition. The design was the forerunner of the famous World War II Mosquito. America's newest military transport is the C-17 Globemaster III, built by McDonnell Douglas. The Globemaster was designed to surpass the capabilities of present military airlifters. It delivers more cargo and uses smaller airfields than other military transports. The C-17 is also operated with fewer air crew members, less maintenance, and lower lifetime costs than current airlifters. Reverse thrust allows the C-17 to be completely turned around on a 90-foot wide runway, a space little over half the length of the aircraft. The Globemaster's been used on a limited basis and is scheduled for full deployment next year. This 1948 Lockheed Constellation once was owned by the actor John Travolta. It began life as a military transport, then was used as an aerial sprayer until Travolta purchased the aircraft in 1984. Many military counties were converted to passenger planes in the 1950s, before the advent of the jet airliner. The fuselage of this county currently is painted in the colors of the Military Air Transport Service. Lyle Shelton's Rare Bear is a familiar sight to air race fans. The highly modified Grumman Bearcat has claimed numerous victories and holds the world's 3-kilometer piston engine speed record and the 3,000-meter time to climb record in its class. It is the world's fastest piston-powered airplane.
It is the Rare Bear. It goes awfully fast. In fact, you're a record holder. Tell us that. Tell us about that.
Well, we hold most of the official speed records in the world for piston-driven airplanes. The one we're really proud of is the 3-kilometer absolute straight-out speed record sanctioned by the FAI and the National Aeronautics Association, and that is 529 miles an hour, rounded out. Actually, we've got most of the official performance records for big piston airplanes, and we're kind of proud of that right at this point.
This S-43W amphibian was owned by millionaire Howard Hughes, who originally intended to use it for an around-the-world expedition. Hughes was no stranger to seaplanes. He was responsible for the Hercules flying boat, better known as the Spruce Goose. All the way from South Africa comes this DC-4 Skymaster, the last DC-4 to roll off the assembly line in 1947. The Skymaster was originally financed in 1936 by 5 airlines as a super airliner capable of carrying 40 people. That may not seem like much now, but it's double the capacity of other passenger planes at the time. Like so many other prop airliners, it too fell victim to jet aircraft.
Bruce Bohannon out of Alvin, Texas, is one of the 5 competitors in the Aeroshell Speed Dash here at Oshkosh last year. John Sharp and Nemesis broke the record. Bruce didn't break the record, but he came in second. Now he's going for a record of his own this year at Oshkosh, 6,000 meters time to climb. Bruce, tell us about this record you're shooting for.
John, this record is to 20,000 feet, measured from the time you start moving. So the record is held by Gary Hedges at an RV3 with a 160 horsepower engine, a very popular home built. And we're taking our 100 horsepower Continental up against him, banking on our racing heritage in the airplane and how clean and how little drag there is.
This is about 3 3/4 miles roughly up in the air. What's the time you've got to do to break the record?
Gary holds the record at 15 minutes and 17 seconds. We have to beat that by 3%, so 14 minutes and 49 seconds is our magic number.
Pushy galore is weighed and inspected by officials from the National Aeronautic Association, the U.S. Authority for Aviation and Aerospace Records. Then the airplane is rolled out for its record attempt. Pushy galore is equipped with cameras to record the attempt and a supplemental oxygen system. Remember, timing begins as soon as Bruce releases the brake. The first 20 seconds will be spent for takeoff and establishing the climb. Now, he won't be heading straight up. He and his crew have calculated the best speed and angle needed to gain the most altitude in the shortest time. This is a long, hard climb to more than 3.5 miles above Oshkosh. Earlier this year, Bruce attempted a 3,000-meter climb but failed to set a record, so there's a lot on the line for him and his team. As his crew members see his approach at the south end of the runway, they're confident Bruce never returned this quickly in practice. They hope it's a good sign and that nothing has caused him to abort the attempt. Bruce has indicated to the crew he did indeed reach 6,000 meters. The cameras are now removed from Pushy Galore. Since NAA officials couldn't fly along with Bruce, videotape will be used as incontestable proof.
Looks like we have a good record plane.
Great.
Congratulations. Thank you. What we'll need to do is take a look, get the exact numbers. We'll take another look at it, but it does look like we're going to claim a new record for you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Came back down and you found out you'd done it. I think you finally realized all the work you had put into it, and here at last you got it.
There's no way for me to describe how I feel. It's when you work so hard for something, as long as we put into this, everybody working 7 days a week right at the last, trying to get the airplane up to speed and with enough margin that we could carry the extra camera equipment and things. There's no way for me to describe how I feel.
So for the second consecutive year, a world record has been set at Oshkosh. Bruce Bohannon for his altitude climb to 6,000 meters in a Formula One racer, 2.5 minutes faster than the previous record set in 1983.
To the north of the ultralights, this is the vintage aircraft area. Now, there are three categories of vintage aircraft: antiques that were built in 1945 or earlier, classics built in 1946 through 1955, and contemporaries, built 1956 through 1960. All these airplanes lovingly restored to the condition we see them in today. Tom Roach from Naperville, Illinois, has brought his antique Fleet Finch here. Tom, tell us about this airplane.
Well, it's a Fleet Finch. It was manufactured in 1940, and there were 404 that were made. This was a trainer that, just like the Stearman was used in the United States, this was used in Canada to be a primary trainer for the pilots up there. They built 69 and 41, and the rest were in 40. This is the 278th one built. Most of them were struck in from strength in 1945. This one lasted until 1947, June, making it the last one to fly with the RCAF up in Canada. They believe it was used as a parts chaser, is why it was kept on strength.
Not only are the top names in aerobatics present at the convention, aviation legends and other personalities involved in the world of flight also make appearances. People like Baron Hilton, recipient of this year's Freedom of Flight Award.
Thank you so much, Baron.
Thank you, Tom. Air Force Chief of Staff General Merrill McPeak, and test pilot, war hero, and air show great Bob Hoover.
I must tell you that all of us in aviation support each other. And the kind of response that I have been receiving since we've had this difficulty on my medical certificate, I can only say thank you, thank you. And to all of you, I thank you.
Oshkosh has a definite international flavor, and it's not just in the variety of airplanes on display. The fly-in attracts people from all over the world. This year, 72 different nations were represented. On the home front, the convention has become the focus for governmental interaction with the aviation community. In addition to attendance by government representatives such as U.S. Secretary of Transportation Federico Pena and FAA Administrator David Hinson, ceremonies awarding type certificates to 3 aircraft were also held. The airplanes were certified using simplified procedures developed by EAA and the Small Aircraft Manufacturers Association, which were first announced at Oshkosh '92. This year, 15 Apollo astronauts accepted EAA's invitation to participate and were honored at forums and programs hosted by Flying Magazine. While all these men are best known for their lunar accomplishments, they share another common trait. Each got his start in aviation. Their number included all 3 astronauts of the historic Apollo 11 mission, Michael Collins, Buzz Aldrin, and the first person on the moon, Neil Armstrong.
I've always said I never met an airplane I didn't like, except maybe the YF-102. That was a little bit dicey. But I think my favorite airplane was the F-8 F-1. I see him flying in the air show here yesterday, and it brought real nostalgia, and I'd a lot rather be in that cockpit than on this stage.
I do remember flying what I felt was one of the best airplanes that ever came along, the F-86 Sabre, and that's what I flew in Korea, and I'm pretty proud of that service with the Air Force. Then I flew F-100s in Germany with Ed White, who was a West Pointer. I sort of followed in his footsteps into the astronaut program.
I'm going to step off the limb now. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The whole world watched on a Sunday in July 1969 as the human race took its first bold steps off the planet. Although the first landing on the moon was a beginning in many ways, that also marked the halfway point of the program itself. 6 missions had been completed, 6 were to follow. The first Apollo mission ended in tragedy when a fire aboard the spacecraft while it was being tested killed astronauts Virgil Gus Grissom, Edward White, and Roger Chaffee on January 27, 1967. The next manned launch was Apollo 7. 3 other missions followed that established the groundwork for the first lunar landing. Apollo 8 was the first manned flight to the moon accomplished in the Command Service Module. 9 was the first flight of the Lunar Module. 10, the first lunar module orbit of the moon. The mission succeeding the moonwalk built upon the work done by Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins. The astronauts of Apollos 12 and 14 made the second and third lunar landings and walks.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Yes, Houston, we've had a problem.
Here is a bulletin from ABC News. The Apollo 13 spacecraft has had a serious power supply malfunction.
In between, a second tragedy was narrowly averted with the safe return of Apollo 13 after a service module oxygen tank ruptured.
It was sort of a bad position to be in. We were going in the wrong direction. The Earth was back there. And we had to go around the moon, use the moon's gravity to twist us around, and then use the lunar module, really, which was very fortunate that we had a lunar module. Had this happened on our Apollo 8 flight, the 3 of us would probably be a monument to the space program. They'd be going around forever up there. But fortunately, we had the lunar module, and we used its engine, used its oxygen system and everything like that to get us back safely. And, of course, finally, it would not make a re-entry into the Earth. It's a very flimsy vehicle. And we climbed back into the command module just before we hit the atmosphere. And I'm glad to be here to talk about it today.
The final 3 Apollo missions included driving on the moon in lunar rover vehicles.
But I had a vision. I knew what I wanted to be, and somehow or other I was fortunate enough to do it. And for all of the young people out there today, those that we all love aviation or we wouldn't be here. But the young people today, you're never quite sure exactly how they are going to feel. Neither one of my kids grew up wanting to be an astronaut, for example. But they need to understand that they have to have a vision, that your vision is limited not by what your eyes can see, but by what your mind can imagine. I feel very fortunate that I've always had that vision and been able to live that vision.
The moon missions perhaps stand best as a testament to the interaction of humans and technology. An interaction made possible by teamwork among the many people involved in the project, in space and on the ground. The astronauts themselves have admitted the Apollo program is more about the giant leap for mankind than it is about any of the small steps they took as individuals.
And you're cleared for takeoff. Roger, understand. We're number 1 on the runway. Engine arm ascent. Proceed. Beautiful. 26, 36 feet per second up. 5 for the pitch over.
Leo Laudenslager was the winner of the 1980 World Aerobatic Championships. This international event is held every other year, and much like the Olympics, at alternating locations. In 1980, it just happened to be held right here in Oshkosh. Leo is also a 7-time U.S. National Aerobatic Champ, the only person to win that many titles. In addition to competition and performance, this Tennessee resident has been a mechanic, a flight instructor, a DC-10 pilot, and has commercial ratings in helicopters and gliders. Jim Franklin is among the many performers who fly more than one act. Jim pilots a Kit Fox, a versatile home built in a solo routine. He also flies this wing walking act with Lee Ullman. Some of the other performers we've seen who have more than one act are Leo Laudenslager and Gene Soucy of the Eagles, who also flies a solo act in an extra 300S and a wing walk act in his Showcat. For many, wing walking is synonymous with the barnstorming era, when stunting was often done with little regard for safety. Wing walking has evolved considerably since those days. Today, wing walking is still a key feature at air shows, a respected aerobatic performance. Although, a lot of people would question the sanity of anybody who would get up on top of the wing of a flying aircraft. In fact, at the moment, I'm kind of questioning it a little myself. This is the spot Teresa Stokes normally occupies on top of Gene Soucy's Showcat. Now, they have agreed to give me a ride in the best seat in the house. They say if you want to see an air show, this is the way to see it. Thank you, Teresa. Just don't expect me to try any Teresa stunts. Dogfight is the classic aerial confrontation, pilot against pilot, plane against plane, deadly serious in wartime. Dogfighting today is still serious for the combatants, but thanks to laser technology, it's not deadly. Our participants are, in a red Marchetti, former F-117A stealth pilot Rob Donaldson and his co-pilot Dave Hulk Schellinger. Flying a white Marchetti is a veteran dogfighter credited with more than 100 victories, 11-year-old Katrina Mumaw.
Assisting Katrina is Alexander Zoyev, a former Soviet MiG-29 pilot. The man in charge of all this is U.S. Fighter Squadron's Don Pappy Hines. Pappy, tell us how this works.
Well, it's really simple and it's very accurate. We have laser systems in the aircraft. When you get your enemy into your gun sight, you pull the trigger, shoots laser bullets. If you're accurate, the airplane detects it, and it emits a burst of smoke. That's a kill.
Tigers, knock it off. Good kill. Roger, knock it off.
Okay, bandit, speed and angel set.
Okay, fighter speed and angel set. Go on, Python. Python. Okay, let's do it. Pull. Pull. Now, roll the plane. Roll, that's good. Okay, here they are. Pull. Jump. Pull. Excellent. Pull up, follow him, press the button. We're filling up with smoke here. We must have been shot. That girl's bad.
Let's talk first to Katrina and Alex and find out how it went up there. How was it, Katrina?
It was great.
What were some of the things you did?
Well, we shot the other guy down.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, you didn't want to talk to us about strategy before we started. What kind of strategy did you... You like to climb a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
So what did you do?
Well, as soon as we passed, I liked going up and then turning into him.
That worked for you?
Yes.
How is she, Alex, as a flyer?
She was incredible.
The other guys have arrived. Let's start with Rob Donaldson. How was it up there for you, sir?
Well, as Alex mentioned, a very, very worthy opponent, and bottom line is I'm glad she's on our side. She's going to be a real tribute to aviation in the years to come, as she is right now.
The official verdict? It's a draw. The veteran fighter pilot against a veteran kid, and everyone comes out a winner. These are, in a sense, living monuments to a bygone era. Warbirds, trainers in combat airplanes last used in World War II or the Korean War. When the jets came along, most planes like these were consigned to scrap heaps. But a few people with a profound respect not only for their role in the wars, but for the airplanes themselves, have kept them alive. And not just as static museum pieces, as powerful, majestic flying machines. The spotlight in this year's World War II tribute is on the Corsairs and the men who flew them. Navy Squadron VF-17, Skull and Crossbones, or the Jolly Rogers as they became known. This is a group that produced a dozen aces and in one 5-day period had 60 victories. The Fighting 17 first entered action in the Pacific during November 1943. The Jolly Rogers saw 12 of their pilots attain ace status during the war, led by Ira Kepford with 13 victories. Commander John Tom Blackburn totaled 11 during his stint as leader of Navy Squadron VF-17. The F-4U remained in production longer than any other U.S. World War II fighter. The single-seat Corsair was originally fitted with a 2,000 horsepower engine and at one time was the fastest fighter in the U.S. military inventory.
Originally designed for aircraft carrier use, it was primarily land-based until 1944. The Corsair's kill-to-loss ratio was an impressive 11-to-1 against the Japanese. After the war, both the Corsair and Squadron VF-17 would go on to fight in the Korean conflict. Approximately 24 Corsairs still exist in airworthy condition. The skull and crossbones designation of the Jolly Rogers also survives to this day.
This is FG-1D. The serial is 92399, built in late 44. It was built under license from Vought to Goodyear, built in Akron. We found the airplane as you see it today in pieces and parts 2.5 years ago. So it's just freshly rebuilt. As you can tell, it's still a little bit green as well as blue. And I've told people the reason it's green, we ran out of money and for blue paint about at the end. It's been flying now about 2 weeks. We finished it just in time for the Jolly Rogers celebration here at Oshkosh.
If you can't make it to the convention, maybe part of the convention can come to you. This restored B-17 aluminum overcast began a very successful nationwide tour earlier this year. It's home for the convention, but will continue to travel the country following the fly-in.
While I'm one of the many pilots that fly this airplane, I'm speaking for all of us. We are so privileged and honored to have this opportunity to bring this airplane to so many people of all age groups around the country. And our only wish was that we could have everybody fly this airplane and have a feel for what this meant to each and every one of us.
There are as many ways to leave the convention as there are aircraft on the field. Most people fly out what they fly in, be it ultralight, antique classic, home-built, or warbird. Since I get to choose, I thought I'd head out in style.
EAA offers the very best in aviation-related viewing, including a complete selection of award-winning how-to, entertainment, documentary, and specialty videos. Make EAA Video your source for aviation information and excitement. For a free catalog or for information on how you can join the EAA Airventure Video Club and receive an automatic 15% discount on every video purchase, please call 1-800-843-3612 or write EAA Catalog Sales, P.O. Box 3086, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, 54903-3086.